What if the reason you cannot let go is not because you still want them, but because you are terrified that letting go means none of it was ever real? Have you ever noticed how we cling to pain because it feels like the last remaining bridge to something we loved? If you have ever felt exhausted by your own memories, stuck in a quiet room of grief, or anchored to someone who is no longer there, this is for you. Stay until the end, because the final lesson may change the way you see this pain forever. You know you need to move on. The world tells you to move on. Time passes, seasons change, but inside your mind, the clock has stopped. There is a hidden wound beneath your resistance to letting go. You are afraid that if you stop hurting, if you stop thinking about them, if you finally lay down the heavy weight of this loss, you will erase the beauty of what happened. You hold on to the sorrow because it feels like a quiet, desperate form of loyalty. You replay old conversations. You stare at the empty spaces they left behind. You keep your entire life orbiting around an absence. You believe that moving forward is an act of betrayal. Buddhist wisdom teaches us a gentle but profound truth about human suffering. We suffer not simply because we lose things, but because we refuse to accept that the very nature of life is change. In Buddhist thought, clinging is the root of our deepest sorrow, but this clinging is often born from a profound misunderstanding of love and truth. We mistakenly believe that to hold on tightly, even to pain, is to honor what we had. Buddhism reminds us that the truth of an experience is not measured by how long you can suffer for its loss. Imagine a person standing in a beautiful flowing river. The water is cool, clear, and perfectly reflects the morning sky. But this person is desperately trying to grasp a single handful of water. The tighter they clench their fists, the faster the water slips through their fingers. Soon their hands ache. Their arms grow heavy and tired. They are so furiously focused on the water they are losing, they forget they are standing in an endless, life-giving river. This is what we do with our past. We clench our fists around a moment that has already passed. We try to freeze time. We think that if we just hold on to the ache, it proves that the love, the friendship, or the dream was genuine. We let our minds wander the same empty hallways over and over, hoping to find a different ending. But all it does is trap us in a cycle of quiet exhaustion. Ask yourself, think about your own life right now. Are you holding on to the beautiful memory of what was? Or are you holding on to the sharp pain of what is no longer? What are you truly afraid will happen if you finally open your hand? Pause. Breathe. Observe this fear without letting it consume you. You do not have to force yourself to forget. You do not have to pretend it did not matter. You only have to stop fighting the reality of today. Letting go does not mean your past was a lie. It does not mean the love was an illusion. It simply means your future deserves your presence. Because peace is not found by freezing time. It is found by allowing life to flow. But letting go of this fear is only the first step. And this is where the next truth begins. Because to truly release the weight, we must first look at how we have built our everyday lives around a ghost. 2. Building a life around a ghost. Here is a truth that is deeply uncomfortable to face. Sometimes, the hardest part of letting go is realizing how much of your current life is perfectly designed to keep an absence alive. When you experience a profound loss, whether it is the end of a relationship, a falling out with a friend, or a chapter of your life closing unexpectedly, a massive void opens up. At first, you simply fall into it. But over time, you do something much more subtle. You start decorating the edges of the void. You begin organizing your routines, your silent moments, and your daily habits around the empty space. You avoid certain streets because they remind you of the past. You scroll through distant memories looking for proof that they still matter. You keep your emotional schedule just open enough, harboring a quiet, secret hope that things might suddenly reverse. Without realizing it, you have turned your everyday life into a quiet shrine for someone who is no longer present. Buddhist wisdom teaches us to look closely at our attachments, especially the ones we do not realize we hold. One of the deepest lessons of Buddhism is the understanding of the stories we tell ourselves. Often, we attach ourselves not just to the person or situation we lost, but to the very identity of being the one left behind. We become comfortable in our quiet suffering. We start to believe that if we stop organizing our world around this absence, we will have nothing left. We cling to the ghost because the ghost is familiar, and the unknown open space of a new life feels terrifying. Imagine living in a vast, beautiful house with many wide windows and bright rooms. In the center of this house is a single room where the door is permanently locked. Inside that room is the memory of what you have lost. Instead of opening the windows, letting the breeze in, and living in the rest of the house, you spend all your time sitting in the dark hallway right outside that closed door. You tiptoe around it. You listen for sounds on the other side. You let the heavy silence of one locked room dictate how you experience your entire home. This is what happens when you let a ghost dictate your reality. Think about how this shows up in your own life. You meet new people, but you keep them at a distance, unfairly comparing them to a shadow. You feel entirely disconnected at work or with family, simply because so much of your inner energy is being secretly drained by keeping a memory alive. You wait for an apology that will never arrive. You sit in your room, feeling intensely lonely, yet refusing to step outside and let the present moment touch you. Ask yourself, look honestly at the way you move through your days. How much of your time is spent actively participating in the present moment? And how much is spent keeping watch over an empty chair? Are you living your life, or are you just keeping an absence company? Stop, breathe, look at your physical surroundings right now. Bring your awareness back into this exact moment. You do not have to force yourself to lock away your past, but you must stop giving it the master key to your daily life. You are allowed to walk away from the closed door. You are allowed to let the rest of your life be filled with light, because true respect for what you experienced does not require you to sacrifice your present. But to finally step away from the door, you have to understand the very nature of what you are holding on to. And this is where the next truth begins, because beneath every lingering ghost is the terrifying illusion that if it did not last forever, it must have been a lie. 3. The illusion of permanence and the truth of beauty. Here is the truth few people want to face. We have been conditioned to believe that for love, happiness, or connection to be real, it must be permanent. When something beautiful ends, our minds immediately search for a reason to invalidate it. If a relationship falls apart, we tell ourselves it must have been a lie from the beginning. If a deep friendship quietly fades away, we assume the connection was never genuine. We measure the validity of our experiences by their duration. And because we are so terrified of having been foolish or naive, we rewrite our own history. We take the beautiful moments of our past and paint over them with the pain of how they ended. We decide that because they left, or because circumstances changed, the joy we felt must have been a trick of the light. But what if the ending does not erase the truth of the beginning? Buddhist wisdom teaches us the profound concept of impermanence. In Buddhist thought, the nature of all things is to arise, exist for a time, and eventually pass away. This is not a tragic flaw of the universe. It is the very rhythm of existence. We suffer because we demand that what is fleeting must become permanent. Buddhism reminds us that the beauty of a moment is not found in its ability to last forever, but in its ability to be fully experienced while it is here. Imagine you are standing on a quiet shore, watching the most brilliant sunset you have ever seen. The sky is painted in deep oranges, soft purples, and burning golds. For 20 minutes, the world is breathtaking. And then, the sun dips below the horizon, and the sky fades into darkness. Do you fall to your knees and weep, declaring that the sunset was a lie? Do you call the colors an illusion just because they faded into night? Of course not. You accept that the sunset was real, and you accept that it had to end. Yet, we refuse to give this same grace to our own lives. When a season of your life comes to a close, you treat it like a betrayal. You carry the memory like a heavy burden, punishing yourself for believing in the light just because the dark eventually came. You let the fear of having been wrong about the future rob you of the truth of what you experienced in the past. You tell yourself that letting go of the pain means admitting the love was worthless. Think about your own life. Ask yourself, are you diminishing the reality of a beautiful chapter simply because the page had to turn? Are you punishing your past self for loving something that was not meant to stay? Pause, breathe. Look at the memory clearly. Allow the sunset to be exactly what it was, a moment of true light. You do not have to hold on to the cold night air to prove that the sun was once warm. You can accept that what you felt was deeply, undeniably real, and still accept that its time has passed. The feeling was true, the experience was true, and its ending is also true. Letting go does not mean admitting defeat. It means acknowledging that a beautiful thing has completed its natural cycle. But accepting impermanence can trigger a deep, unexpected sense of guilt within us. And this is where the next truth begins. Because once we realize we do not have to hold on to the past to prove it was real, we must face the fact that we have been using our own suffering as a strange form of devotion. 4. The trap of loyalty to suffering. What if you are not holding on to the pain because you cannot heal, but because you secretly believe that healing is a betrayal? Here is the truth few people want to face. We often confuse our suffering with loyalty. We think that if we stop crying, if we stop hurting, if we finally wake up one morning and do not immediately think of the person or the life we lost, it means we have stopped caring. You might even feel a sudden sharp spike of guilt on the days you actually feel light. You catch yourself smiling at a joke or deeply enjoying a quiet afternoon, and suddenly a heavy wave of shame pulls you back down. You remind yourself of the absence. You force the emotional wound open again. You feel that moving on means you are abandoning the memory, leaving it behind in the dark. You are afraid that if you are not actively in pain, the world and perhaps your own heart will forget how much it all mattered. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that suffering is a heavy anchor, not a monument of love. In Buddhist thought, the mind often attaches to sorrow because it feels substantial. It feels real. We mistakenly build a deep sense of identity around our grief. But one of the deepest lessons of Buddhism is that pure love and true connection are light. They do not demand your perpetual misery as a form of payment. To hold on to suffering as proof of love is to deeply misunderstand both suffering and love. Imagine a person standing in the center of a beautiful, vibrant garden. Many years ago, someone they loved handed them a heavy stone and asked them to hold it, but that person never returned. Now, seasons have passed. The stone is impossibly heavy. The person's arms are shaking, their back is deeply bent, and they cannot reach out to touch the flowers, feel the rough bark of the trees, or catch the falling rain. They believe that if they finally put the stone down upon the earth, they are betraying the one who handed it to them. They believe the heavy stone is the only remaining connection, but the stone is just a stone, and it is keeping them from actually living in the garden. This is exactly what happens when you use your sadness as a monument in your modern life. You push away new relationships because you feel a quiet guilt for enjoying them. You refuse to forgive yourself for past mistakes. carrying the guilt like a badge of honor. You stay up late into the night, replaying old conversations, deliberately punishing yourself to prove that you still care. You convince yourself that a heavy heart is a loyal heart. You let the pressure of loyalty steal your right to a peaceful life. Ask yourself, think about your own life right now. Who is truly benefiting from this heavy stone? Is your daily suffering actually honoring the past, or is it merely breaking your present? What if the truest way to honor a beautiful chapter of your life is to allow yourself to be whole and happy in the next one? Pause, breathe. Feel the invisible weight you are choosing to carry today. Observe the thought that tells you pain equals love. Let that thought rise and let it pass without making it your absolute truth. You are allowed to put the stone down. You can let the joy of the past exist without endlessly paying for it with the sorrow of today. Because true loyalty to your journey means allowing yourself to grow. But to finally put the stone down, we must rethink what it actually means to be untethered. And this is where the next truth begins. Because letting go is rarely about pushing things away. It is about completely changing the way we hold them. 5. The true meaning of non-attachment. What if the harder you try to hold on, the more you suffocate the very thing you love? Here is the truth few people want to face. We often confuse attachment with connection. We are taught that to love something means to hold it as tightly as possible. We believe that if we do not grip the relationship, the memory, or the dream with both hands, it will slip away and disappear forever. So we cling, we try to control the timing of our lives. We try to force people to stay, force situations to resolve, and force our hearts to feel a certainty that simply does not exist. We think this desperate, exhausting grip is proof of our dedication. But the tighter you hold, the more you suffer. Buddhist wisdom teaches us the gentle but profound difference between love and attachment. In Buddhist thought, attachment says, "I need you to be exactly what I want so I can feel safe." True love and connection say, "I want you to be exactly what you are." One of the deepest lessons of Buddhism is the practice of non-attachment. Many people mistake non-attachment for coldness, distance, or a lack of caring. But true non-attachment is not about disconnecting from the world. It is about engaging with the world fully, without demanding that it stay frozen, in time just for you. Imagine a beautiful wild bird landing quietly on your open palm. For a moment, there is a perfect, peaceful connection. The bird is there, resting naturally, but suddenly you become terrified that the bird will fly away. To protect the moment, you close your fingers around it. You trap it. In your desperate attempt to keep the bird from leaving, you destroy the very freedom that made the connection beautiful in the first place. You crush what you were trying to save. This is what we do with our past and our present. Think about how you handle uncertainty in your own life. You obsess over someone's actions, trying to predict their next move. You desperately try to manage how other people perceive you. You build a heavy cage of expectations around your relationships, your daily routine, and your own future. You try to force a chapter of your life to stay open long after the story has naturally moved on. And when the world inevitably acts like the world, you feel completely shattered. Your tight grip is not saving the connection, it is only exhausting your spirit. Ask yourself, think about your own life right now. Are you truly loving the memories and the people in your life, or are you simply trying to possess them? What are you afraid will happen if you finally open your hands? Is this tight grip bringing you peace, or is it only feeding your fear? Pause, breathe. Open your hands, if only in your mind. You do not have to abandon what you care about. You simply have to stop trying to force it into a shape that makes you feel in control. You can let the bird rest on your palm, and you can let it fly when it is time. Do your part, then release the outcome. Because peace is not found by building a cage. It is found by keeping the door open. But opening that door can feel deeply unsettling when your hands have been clenched for so long. And this is where the next truth begins. Because when we finally let go of the struggle, we must figure out what to do with the terrifying, beautiful emptiness of the space we have left behind. 6. Making space for the present moment. What if the emptiness you feel after letting go is not a void, but a clearing? Here is a truth that is deeply unsettling. When you finally put down the heavy stone of your past, the initial feeling is rarely immediate joy. It is usually a profound, terrifying quiet. You have spent so much time actively hurting, actively missing, and actively waiting that the pain became your daily schedule. It gave you a purpose, even if that purpose was simply to endure. Without it, you feel entirely untethered. You might even find yourself waiting for the familiar ache to return, simply because you do not know who you are without the wound. You fill your days with constant, frantic noise to avoid sitting in the quiet room of your own present life. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that what we perceive as a terrifying absence is actually pure potential. In Buddhist thought, there is a deep reverence for spaciousness. We are conditioned to view empty space as a sign of failure, a glaring indicator that something vital has been taken from us. We look at the empty space in our lives and only see what is missing. But Buddhism reminds us that a bowl is only useful because of its empty center. Without open space, nothing new can ever enter your life. Imagine a dense, deeply overgrown forest. For years, heavy trees blocked out the sun, and thick, tangled vines covered the earth. Then, a great sweeping wind clears a large section of the woods. At first, the ground looks entirely bare. It feels like a tragic absence. But because the heavy canopy is finally gone, pure, warm sunlight reaches the soil for the first time in decades. It is only in that quiet, unbroken, empty space that a completely new kind of seed can begin to grow. Think about how this relates to your daily life. We are deeply terrified of the bare soil. When a connection fades or a chapter ends, we immediately panic. We rush to plant something identical in its place, or we pave over the earth with endless distractions. We drown out the silence with screens, overworking, and exhausting routines. We are so afraid of sitting with the quiet absence that we never give the sunlight a chance to touch our actual, present reality. We treat the present moment merely as a waiting room, hoping to escape the discomfort of having nothing to hold on to. Ask yourself, think about your own life right now. What are you desperately using to fill the quiet spaces of your day? Are you actually running from pain? Or are you simply terrified of the feeling of open space? What if the emptiness is not an enemy, but an invitation? Pause. Breathe. Let the silence exist without immediately rushing to fill it. You do not have to figure out the rest of your life today. You only have to inhabit this exact moment. Let the feeling of open space rise without running from it. Stop trying to frantically decorate the void, because true peace is not about replacing what you lost. It is about allowing the space to simply be. But resting in this new space means we will sometimes be surprised by what blows through it. And this is where the next truth begins. Because even when we clear the ground, sudden, unexpected surges of memory will still arrive, and we must learn how to meet them without being swept away. 7. The river of grief and the flow of acceptance. What if the sudden return of a painful memory is not a sign that you are failing to heal, but simply proof that you are human? Here is the truth few people want to face. Healing is never a straight, unbroken line. You can go weeks, months, or even years feeling entirely at peace. You think you have finally let go. You believe the heavy stone is permanently gone. But then, on an ordinary afternoon, you hear a familiar song. You catch a certain scent in the empty air, You see someone standing in the distance who moves exactly like they did, and suddenly the ache hits you with the exact same quiet force it had on the very first day. When this happens, we immediately panic. We become intensely angry with ourselves. We believe we have lost all our progress. We tell ourselves that we should be over this by now. We treat the sudden wave of emotion as a personal failure. We fight the feeling. We desperately try to push the memory away, deeply ashamed that an old ghost still has the power to bring us to our knees. Buddhist wisdom teaches us a deeply liberating truth about our emotions. They are not permanent residents in our minds. They are merely visitors passing through. In Buddhist thought, the goal is never to stop the mind from feeling, but to stop the mind from violently fighting what it feels. We suffer immensely when we resist the natural flow of our inner world. Buddhism reminds us that pure pain only transforms into prolonged suffering when we desperately refuse to let it run its course. Imagine you are standing in a wide, powerful river. Most days, the water gently flows around your ankles. It is calm, and you can easily walk forward. But occasionally, a massive, unexpected wave rushes downstream. If you tense your body, dig your heels into the mud, and try to violently fight the wave, the water will knock you under. You will exhaust yourself. You will drown in the struggle. But if you simply relax, allow your feet to lift and float for a brief moment, the heavy water will pass right by you. The river will naturally calm again. This is what we must do with our sudden waves of memory. Think about your own reactions in your daily life. You are moving through your routine, focused on your work or talking with a friend, and a profound wave of sadness silently rises. Instead of simply letting the sadness exist, you go to war with it. You judge it. You anxiously ask why it is happening again. You turn a simple, passing emotion into a fierce, exhausting battle. You are trying to fight the river. Ask yourself. Think about your own life. When the memory returns, do you allow it to simply wash over you? Or do you fight the current until you are exhausted? Is this resistance bringing you peace? Or is it only feeding your fear that you will never be free? Pause. Breathe. Observe the heavy feeling without following it into the dark. Let the sadness rise without making it your identity. You do not have to conquer your memories. You only have to stop fighting their current. When the wave comes, do not try to force it back. Let it wash over you. Let the storm pass without becoming the storm. Because peace is not the permanent absence of waves. It is the quiet trust that you will not drown when they arrive. But once we stop fighting the water, we are finally carried to a new place. And this is where the next truth begins. Because when we finally accept that the past is gone, we must figure out how to build a reality that does not rely on an absence. What if the very thing you thought was keeping you grounded is actually the heavy weight holding you underwater? Here is the truth few people want to face. When you live with a deep absence for a long time, the loss eventually stops being just a memory. It becomes your identity. We secretly build our entire sense of self around the thing that is missing. You become the person who was left behind. You become the person whose life did not go as planned. You use the pain as a quiet compass to navigate your daily decisions, your walls, and your interactions. We are profoundly terrified to redefine our reality because we believe that without the anchor of this loss, we will simply drift away into nothingness. We ask ourselves, if I am no longer the person holding on to this beautiful thing, then who am I? Buddhist wisdom teaches us a deeply liberating truth about who we are. In Buddhist thought, the self is not a rigid, unchanging monument. It is a flowing river, constantly moving, constantly shifting, and constantly renewing. But we suffer immensely because we try to freeze our identity in a single moment of time, usually the moment we were hurt the most. One of the deepest lessons of Buddhism is that you are not defined by the things that have left you. When you attach your core identity to a wound, you limit your own existence. You trap your spirit in a story that has already ended. Imagine a strong, beautifully crafted boat resting in a quiet harbor. Many years ago, a dark storm rolled in, and to stay safe, a massive iron anchor was dropped deep into the mud. But time has passed. The storm ended long ago. In fact, the environment has changed so much that the water has completely receded. The boat is now sitting on dry, cracked earth, its paint slowly fading in the harsh sun. The open, living ocean is just a mile away, wide and waiting. But the boat remains exactly where it is. Why? Because the anchor is still firmly buried in the dry ground. The boat is desperately, safely tied to a life that is no longer there. This is what we do when we refuse to redefine our lives without the anchor of loss. Think about how this shows up in your own quiet moments. You automatically reject new joy because it does not fit the heavy narrative you have written for yourself. You walk through your day, but you only look through the lens of what used to be. You meet new people, but you keep them at a distance because the version of you they are meeting is entirely defined by an empty chair. You have anchored your entire reality to dry earth, refusing to let the vast, open water of your present life carry you. Ask yourself, think about your own life right now. Are you living your future, or are you simply guarding the aftermath of your past? Who would you be tomorrow if you finally pulled the heavy anchor out of the ground? Pause, breathe. Let that terrifying, beautiful question linger in the quiet space. You do not have to know exactly who you are becoming today. You only have to give yourself permission to stop being defined by what is missing. Pull up the anchor. Let the reality of your life be defined by what is actually standing in front of you. Because true freedom is not found by staring safely at an empty harbor. It is found by turning your face toward the open water. But pulling up the anchor is only the preparation for the real journey. And this is where the final truth begins. Because once we let go of the pain, the ghost, and the anchor, we must finally learn how to step entirely out of the orbit of absence. 9. Stepping out of the orbit of absence. What if stepping away from the shadows does not erase your past, but finally allows you to live your future? We began this journey by looking at a deeply hidden wound, the quiet, terrifying fear that if you finally let go, it would mean none of it was ever real. We saw how you turned your daily life into a silent shrine, holding onto the heavy stone of suffering because it felt like the last remaining bridge to what you loved. You have been pacing the hallways, outside a locked door, keeping your entire existence orbiting around an empty chair. You convinced yourself that living a full, joyous life would be a betrayal. But you are exhausted, and it is time to rest. Buddhist wisdom gently reminds us that the highest form of respect we can give to any experience is our profound, unbroken presence. In Buddhist thought, letting go is never an act of destruction. It is an act of unbinding. You cannot truly honor a beautiful past by systematically dismantling your present. To be awake, to be fully alive right now, is the ultimate practice of peace. Imagine a planet that has spent countless ages orbiting a brilliant star. The star provided warmth, light, and a center of gravity. But one day, the star quietly burns out. It leaves nothing but a cold, vast absence in the sky. If the planet continues to stubbornly circle that dark space, refusing to break its path, it will slowly freeze. Nothing new will ever grow on its surface. But if it finally breaks orbit, if it drifts through the breathtaking, open universe, it will eventually find a new sun. It will feel the dawn again. Moving toward a new light does not mean the first star never existed. It simply means the planet is ready to be warm again. Think about your own life. You have been circling a dark star for so long. You have arranged your quiet mornings, your deepest thoughts, and your future expectations around something that can no longer give you light. You think this endless, freezing orbit is your destiny. You think it is a testament to how deeply you cared. But you are allowed to change course. You are allowed to let the past remain exactly where it is, beautiful, true, and finished, while you step fully into the clearing of a new chapter. Ask yourself, look deeply into your own heart. Are you ready to feel the warmth again? Are you finally willing to stop guarding an empty space and start actively participating in the life that is waiting for you? Pause, breathe. Feel your feet resting firmly on the ground. Bring your awareness completely into this exact second. You are here, you are alive. The void is behind you. Letting go is not an act of erasure. It is an act of deep, profound trust. Trust that what was real will always remain real, embedded in the very fabric of who you are. Trust that you do not need to carry the heavy weight of sorrow to prove that a beautiful thing happened. You do not have to hold the water, you do not have to cage the bird, and you do not have to orbit the absence anymore. You can let the space be open, you can let the river flow. If these lessons touched your heart, share this video with someone who may need a little more peace today. You can let go now.